All right, let's dive into something truly fascinating. We're going to talk about a phenomenon where seeing has nothing to do with what your eyes are actually looking at. We are going to explore a world of phantom pictures cooked up not by our eyes, but by our very own brains.
So, our story doesn't start in some modern high tech lab. Nope. It begins way back in the 18th century with a grandfather and a very strange, very silent world that suddenly started appearing right in front of his eyes.
Just imagine this for a second. Your eyesight is failing. The world around you is getting dim and blurry. But then, out of nowhere, you start seeing things more vividly than ever before. We're talking patterns, people, entire landscapes that you know, deep down, are absolutely not real. This is literally what an 87-year-old man who was almost completely blind from cataracts described to his grandson back in 1760. And get this, he was perfectly sane. He knew these visions weren't real, but there they were, like a silent movie playing just for him.
So, what on earth was going on? Back then, it was a total medical mystery. It took a whole lot of investigation to finally put a name to these bizarre phantom visions.
Well, it turns out that grandson was none other than Charles Bonnet, a Swiss naturalist. He was completely captivated and wrote down everything about his grandfather's case. But funnily enough, it took another 200 years before the condition was officially named in his honor. So today, we call it Charles Bonnet Syndrome, or CBS for short. Now, this is the most important part to remember. It's a direct result of losing your sight. It is not a mental illness. The mind is perfectly healthy. It's the visual system that's going a little creative. And what's so interesting is that these visions follow a very specific set of rules. For one, people always know that what they're seeing isn't really there. And it's only visual, no sounds, no smells, nothing. The figures they see don't talk to them or interact, and these little episodes tend to happen when a person is just sitting quietly, not doing much.
The hallucinations themselves, oh, they can be all over the map. Sometimes it's just simple stuff like geometric patterns or flashes of light, but other times people see incredibly detailed, complex scenes. People in elaborate costumes, fantastical animals, or entire sprawling landscapes. So, this all begs a huge question, right? If the eyes aren't seeing this stuff, where in the world are these images coming from? Well, the answer tells us something absolutely incredible about how our brains are wired. The best explanation we have is a concept called sensory deafferentation. I know, it's a mouthful, but the idea is actually pretty simple. It's basically the brain getting bored. It's the brain saying, fine, if you're not going to send me any pictures, I'll just make my own. Okay, think of it this way. Your brain has a whole department called the visual cortex in the back of your head, and its one and only job is to process the nonstop flood of information coming in from your eyes. Now, imagine you start losing your sight because of something like macular degeneration. Well, that department, it suddenly has no work to do. The information pipeline from the eyes just gets cut off. The phone line goes dead. Radio silence. But here's where it gets wild. Instead of just shutting down, the neurons in the visual cortex get restless. They become hyperactive and start firing all on their own, spontaneously creating images based on memories and imagination. The department essentially starts making up its own projects to work on. And we're not just guessing here. We can actually see this happening. Brain scans, like fMRIs, of people with CBS show that during a hallucination, those exact visual areas of the brain light up like a Christmas tree. You can literally see the brain making pictures. It's incredible. So, we know the science, but what is it actually like to live with this day in and day out? And if it's not that rare, why do we almost never hear about it? Well, for starters, the condition is surprisingly common. Some studies suggest it could affect up to 40% of older adults with major vision loss. But, and this is the key, it is massively underreported. A huge number, maybe around 60%, never tell their doctor or even their family. And that silence is all about fear. You can understand why, right? People worry that if they admit they're seeing things that aren't there, they're going to get diagnosed with a serious mental illness. When in reality, it has absolutely nothing to do with their mental health. It's purely physical. And the impact it has on daily life? Well, it really varies. For the majority of people, about 60%, it's no big deal. About a third find the visions disruptive or upsetting. And then there's a small group, around 7%, who actually find the experience neutral or even pleasant. So, because there isn't some magic pill you can take, the single most powerful treatment we have is knowledge. Honestly, just having a doctor explain what the condition is, why it's happening, and reassuring you that you're not losing your mind, that alone is often the best therapy there is. And for people who do find the visions annoying, there are some pretty simple practical things you can do to try and stop an episode. Stuff like blinking really fast, darting your eyes back and forth, or even just turning on a brighter light can sometimes be enough to make the phantom images just fade away. So let's step back and look at the big picture. What does this strange, fascinating condition really teach us about our own minds and the world we think we see? At the end of the day, Charles Bonnet Syndrome isn't just some weird medical curiosity. It's a profound peek behind the curtain. It shows us that our brain isn't just a passive camera, just recording what's out there. No, it is an active, restless, and constant creator of the reality we experience every single second. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? In those quiet moments, when the world outside gets a little dimmer, what other worlds is our brain just waiting to build for us?